just come to get their mail and leave. They come, get their mail, sit down, open it, sit around and talk.
Springville is a fictional name Guy and Patricia gave to the community so that local people would feel relaxed in their company. To win their trust, Guy and Patricia also promised them they would use pseudonyms.
Willie is a lifelong resident of the area. He grew up on one of the farms close to the store. He's always lived out here and worked in agriculture his whole life. He's a very good example of what we would call older, rural, African-American speech patterns.
You told me that when you were a boy you did a lot of hunting and stuff?
Yes, I hunted a little bit, yes, sir.
What all did you hunt?
Armadillo, rabbits, and everything I could get.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is the armadillo pretty good to eat?
Yes, sir, he good, sir.
Never had armadillo. What's it taste like?
Taste good, like chicken.
Is that right?
Yes, sir, sure do, sir. You couldn't rice it.
Is that right? How you cook it?
Well, my mama, she boiled him, you know, in a pot, you know.
Uh-huh.
Put some onion around him and, you know, make gravy out of him.
What we've been able to do with this research is to look at how things change over time in a single community.
We had some hard times in my days.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. It was hard, sir.
Yeah.
My daddy.
Willie's way of talking can be traced right back to the time of slavery. We know this because one of the things that makes this part of Texas so special is a series of recordings and photographs made here in the 1930s and 40s.
These were pictures that were made by workers for the WPA here in Texas. The top two are from former slaves who were from this district. The others are from slaves in other parts of Texas.
You think of slavery being so long ago, so long in the past.
So much of it, though, was a 19th century phenomenon.
So these people photographed in the late 30s or 1940 or thereabouts could actually be the grandchildren or even children of people brought directly from Africa.
That's exactly right. Okay, here are some recordings from the Library of Congress with former slaves who were born in Texas.
Born right there and stayed there until I was about 9, 10 years old, maybe more. Stayed right there. We didn't know where to go. Mom and them didn't know where to go. You see, after freedom broke, just like you turned something out, you know. Didn't know where to go. That's just where they stayed.
I said, I'm 61 or 2 years old, and I never had no trouble in my life. I said, I never asked the noise for a nickel, but they didn't give it to me in my life, and now one of them never cussed at me.
What is significant to you in the speech patterns on these recordings?
They're very different from current-day African-American vernacular English. Many of the features that are most common in what linguists call AAVE, things like invariant B, they be working, or the deleted copula, they working, you don't see as much. The invariant B, you don't see it all, hear it all in the slave tapes.
African-American speech changed in the epic migration of rural Southern blacks to the cities of the North. Over many decades, until the 1970s, some 6 million made that journey. And as always when there are great movements of people, there are also great changes of language. In the cities of the North, the races mixed less than in the rural South. Instead, blacks and their language found themselves isolated in ghettos.
In the large cities, you had spatial segregation, but you also had the formation of separate communities, often with a kind of oppositional culture to the rest of the U.S. This created an ideal context for African-American vernacular English to develop along a separate track.
What we heard in Detroit shows how that separate development continues to this day.
I put 2 extra little loops in there.
For track music? While the beat's going?
Yeah, like when it first started, so you don't gotta start.
I think what you can say is that white speech and African-American speech over the last 150 years or so have developed along different paths. They've had sort of independent development, not influencing each other very much at all, so that their grammars are very different today, probably more different than they've ever been, and their phonologies aren't very similar, their sound systems aren't very similar either. It's kind of independent development.
I suppose you could sum up Springville like this. 150 years ago, rural blacks and whites sounded more alike than you might have thought. But today, whites and inner-city blacks sound more different than you might have hoped. After decades of civil rights advances, the implications are pretty sobering, because more separate languages mean more separate peoples. Late afternoon, the end of a long day's drive. I'm heading for the heart of Texas, but I couldn't resist a little detour when I saw this name on the map. Cut and Shoot is just one of a number of place names I jotted down from the map that shows something extravagant and imaginative in the Texas personality. Here's some other names of places: Wink, Telephone, New Deal, Oatmeal, Old Glory, Pandora, Rainbow, Best, Bangs, Birthright, Cash, Deadwood, Grit, Gun Barrel City, Happy, and Joy. The population of Best, incidentally, is 1. Somewhere around here, there's a man who makes a good living out of Texas talk and an art out of being politically incorrect. He started out writing country and western songs with clever lyrics. Now he writes detective stories set in Texas. He's also written a book called Texas Etiquette, which includes a chapter on Texas talk. His name is Kinky Friedman. Around here, he's known to one and all as the Kinkster. Hello.
Robin.
Great to meet you.
Kinky the friendly cowboy.
Yeah, right.
And 2 great Americans. You're almost an American anyway.
I'm an American.
You are an American.
Yeah, recently. Though Kinky wasn't born in Texas, he's become a professional Texan.
Anyway, welcome to Echo Hill.
Thank you.
Come on in. This is always live in a house that's older than you are, I suggest.
I've never been here before.
Well, you haven't missed too
really
much.
beautiful.
No, actually you have. It's a very beautiful place. What are you looking for in this sort of thing?
We're looking for Texas talk.
Are you looking for a man not smoking a cigar?
No, you can smoke a cigar. We're, Kinky loves to work the colorful Texan way with language into song lyrics, books, and articles.
Sort of a place.
This is where you write?
Yeah, this is my typewriter. This is the last typewriter in Texas.
Uh-huh.
I don't use any computers or the internet. I think they're the work of Satan.
Uh-huh. What are you working on right now?
I've just finished a book called Kill 2 Birds and Get Stoned, which is about 3 people trying to shut down a Starbucks in New York City.
Uh-huh.
And,
Kinky's way with words has won him many fans, some of them quite important. Who are your friends here?
we have George Bush,
Yeah,
kind of a friend of presidents these days.
I see.
And Bill Clinton.
they're both friends of yours?
Yeah, and I'm kind of like Billy Graham or Jesse Jackson. I'm a professional friend of presidents.
Uh-huh.
My friend Don Imus accuses me of being best friends with Bill Clinton until 1 millisecond after he was out of office, then jumping to George Bush.
You're George Bush's favorite author?
Yes, but George is not that voracious a reader.
But you suit his attention span? Is that-
Yeah. He's a great American.
Thanks to Kinky, non-Texans can relish Texan terms like these. Well, butter my butt and call me a biscuit to mean all right or hi. Cattywampus for something that doesn't fit or is out of line. Dad blame it, dad bum it, dag nabbit. All euphemisms to avoid swearing. Luripin, tastier than finger-licking good. And all swole up to mean irritated or proud and self-absorbed. But to hear Texas talk in its tallest form, head for the state capitol in Austin. The legislature is a kind of one-stop shop for every kind of Texas accent.
How about joining me in it, Walker County? Togetherness one more time.
Hereby recognize March 11, 2003 as Walker County Day at the State Capitol and welcome all visiting from this notable county.
Though Texans are far from formal, this is the only place in my travels where I have to wear a jacket and tie. I'm here to meet an old friend, that redoubtable writer, columnist, commentator, and scourge of all politicians, particularly male ones, Molly Ivins, because no one talks better about Texas language than Molly.
We like our food spicy and we like our language spicy. This is one of the greatest places in Texas to hear it properly spoken. You get everything in this House of Representatives from the East Texas drawl to the West Texas twang.
Here's an order. Chair lays out HCR number 20. Be ready.
We've got guys serving in this House who sound exactly like Boomhauer on King of the Hill. You can barely understand a word they say.
You've described Texan as having a lunatic quality of exaggeration. What is it in the Texas psyche that drives that?
I think the best explanation for Texas is that Texas is just like the rest of the country, except more so. Everything here is slightly exaggerated. You get some wonderful expressions, meaner than a skillet full of rattlesnakes. And I'm happy enough to be twins. I have an old friend I camp with who always says, I don't want to die and go to heaven because it couldn't be better than this. And Texan, properly spoken, involves inventing your own metaphors and similes.
Can you think of some examples?
The late Bob Bullock, our light dove, was a great speaker of Texan, and he was one day complaining about some young whippersnapper from the Washington Post who'd been in to interview him. After to explain to me why he didn't like the guy, he said, Molly, his pants was so tight, if he'd have farted, it would have blowed his boots off.
This is the Lyndon Johnson Library in Austin. Few Texans have talked more Texan than America's first president from Texas. To its credit, the LBJ Library hasn't lost its sense of humor.
I was thinking about a story that occurred down in my own hills of Texas.
The real LBJ was famous for his salty turns of phrase. He used to say, he can tell chicken from chicken salad. During the Vietnam War, I personally heard him say, if I got 'em by the short and curlies, the hearts and minds will follow. The uninhibited rhetoric and flamboyant style of Texas politics hit Washington with Lyndon Johnson. I began covering politics with Kennedy and Johnson, just as television replaced radio as the national sounding board. The new political era brought presidential voices to Washington from different regional dialects, starting with Kennedy and Johnson.
The office of President of the United States.
And I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will to the best.
Voters were comfortable with JFK's Massachusetts rasp, but LBJ's accent was another matter altogether.
And will to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Back then, his Texan accent was openly despised.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office.
Even by the late 70s, Jimmy Carter's Georgia accent did him no favors in Washington. Seems to me we've come a long way since then. That former Rhodes Scholar, Bill Clinton, saw no need to lose his Arkansas accent, partly because he could change it at will.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will to the best.
Today, ironically, President Bush, a scion of the East Coast establishment, wants to sound Texan.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
There was a popular intellectual theory about 20 years ago that the whole country was becoming more and more alike. It was all covered with interstate highways and Howard Johnson's restaurants, and everybody talked more and more alike. You know, what's amazing is not the fragility of those cultures, it's their hardihood, it's their endurance. I'm amazed by the tenacity with which custom and dialect endures.
The farther south we go, the stronger the Spanish influence. The road signs tell their own story. Alvarado, Bandera, Chico, Del Rio, El Paso, Frisco, Gonzales, Hondo, Nada, Plata, Refugio, Rio Frio, Santa Ana, and Sierra Blanca. By the time I reach the Tex-Mex border in the evening, it feels as if we're already in Mexico. Every morning it's rush hour on the bridge from Nuevo Laredo in Mexico to Laredo in Texas. It was so snarled up on the day we met Alan Wall that it was easier for him to park on the Mexican side and walk across to the USA. Alan's a language teacher who's married to a Mexican and lives there with his wife and children. Many Americans are so alarmed by the amount of Spanish they hear that they want English to be made our official language. Alan Wall is one of them.
It's a great advantage for us to have a common language. Hi. It's good for the immigrants to learn English. Thank you, sir. It opens up to the mainstream of the American society and economy. It's also an important part of our common citizenship. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the judicial precedents, these are all in English. And I think it's a threat to the linguistic unity of our nation because the English language is our common civic language.
Atención clientes de HB, los estamos invitando a que pasen a sus registers donde puede llevarse el gilet, deodorant, tar stripe, a solamente...
Spanish is everywhere in Laredo. It's not that the supermarket workers can't or won't speak English. It's just there's not much call for it. Even the local newspaper puts out editions in both Spanish and English. The editor is Robert Garcia.
Look at what's happening to major newspapers in the U.S. They're switching some of their segments to Spanish because they need to get to those folks. They need to communicate with those folks. For example, I work with both the Spanish and the English segment of the newspaper, so I'm constantly switching back and forth. You know, but I'm used to that. I'm from the area.
To see just how far the Spanish language has reasserted itself around here, I've come to a little border town called El Cenizo, Texas. I'd made an appointment to meet the mayor. Good morning.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
I have an appointment to see the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Is the mayor here?
No, sir.
Did she say anything about our appointment?
No, sir. She said that very important meeting. Yeah.
So is there somebody else that I could talk to here?
Yes, with Mr. Hernandez. He's commissioner.
A commissioner?
Yes, sir.
You're a commissioner. You were just elected commissioner,
Yeah,
were you?
that's right.
When was that?
In November.
In November.
Yeah.
How many commissioners are there in?
We are right now. We are just two.
Just two commissioners. So you're one of two.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And tell us what the mayor. Where is the mayor? She's
the mayor is right now there in the country.
In Laredo.
In Laredo.
Uh-huh. It's not surprising that the mayor and town commissioners want to avoid controversy. Under the previous mayor, the town passed an ordinance making Spanish its official language. No Inglés. In the border town of El Cenizo, Spanish is in, English is out. Banning English, divisive measure. Spanish is official language in town. Suddenly, El Cenizo found itself at the center of a national furor.
It was ugly. They got calls, threats, people telling them, you're in America, what are you doing, speaking Spanish as an official language in your community.
And they infuriated the U.S. English people, the people who want to make English the official language of the United States.
That also brought on a lot of heat from them.
Has any other town followed El Cenizo's example on Spanish?
I think a lot of them wanted to, but after the reaction that El Cenizo got, they stayed away.
Mexico would never allow that. We could never take over a town in Mexico, declare English the official language, and declare it a haven from Mexican immigration law.
Under that previous mayor, El Cenizo went one step further. It passed an ordinance that no town official was allowed to collaborate with the U.S. immigration authorities. So this is where this little town ends, in the Rio Grande River. The Rio not very grand, in fact, because there isn't much water in it. But through these bushes and across the river is the border with Mexico. So it's a naturally attractive crossing point for illegal immigrants. And this area is heavily patrolled by the Border Patrol. There are an estimated 7 million illegal immigrants in the USA. 7 out of 10 probably slipped across the border with Mexico. The U.S. Border Patrol has put huge resources into stemming that flow.
The tracks being back on the fence is not good. That means we're not too close behind these guys.
Imagine coming through here at night. This is pretty rough country. I mean, you get your clothes torn up on all these thorns and things. It's very, look at all this, it's very sharp. So what proportion of the ones who come across do you think you get?
I would say 40-50%, but overall, the usual people, I've heard different people say it's 10%.
Yeah. Then the Border Patrol saw footprints in the sand. The illegals were spotted huddled in the scrub. A woman patrol officer moved in to make the arrest. No one resisted, no one ran away. They knew they'd be sent back to Mexico, and likely as not, they'd try again soon.
Living in Mexico has given me a different perspective. There was a conference, a Spanish language Congress in 2001, and the president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, was there, and he made the comment that when the immigrants come here and continue to speak Spanish, they are doing their patriotic duty to Mexico. And another speaker there was Carlos Fuentes, who is he's probably the number one living literary figure in Mexico. And he spoke very clearly. He said that there is a silent reconquista, a reconquest of the United States. He didn't even limit it to the Southwest, as many do. He just said, of the United States.
Does the large Hispanic immigration, legal and illegal, really threaten American English? Or, like immigrant groups before, are Latinos merging into the mainstream?
Next time on Do You Speak American?
Hey, sup? How do you say it?
We'll travel up the West Coast from LA to Seattle, where knowing how to navigate the terrain is essential.
You do have to be bilingual in this country. You can be very, very adept at slang, but you have to be adept at getting through a job interview.
And look out.
La chica sexy.
There are some dangerous curves ahead.
Un beso. Mwah. No, I made him blush.
Don't be embarrassed to join us. Next time on Do You Speak American?
Word.
For the down low, the skinny, and the 411 on how you speak American, visit us at pbs.org. While you're there, get tips for starting your own PBS program club so you can continue to speak American with your friends and family. Do You Speak American is available on DVD for $69.95 or VHS for $59.95. A companion book is available for $24.95 plus shipping. To order, call 1-800-336-1917 or write to the address on your screen. Do You Speak American has been made possible in part by the National Endowment for the Humanities, promoting excellence in the humanities. Additional funding is provided by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Rosalind P. Walter, and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations.
I am PBS.